My name is Mildred. I'm the Director of Forensic Social Work here at Legal Aid Westchester. And I'll let Mr. Chris introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. This is Christopher John. I'm with the Westchester County Department of Community Mental Health, and I'm the program administrator here, as well as the dual recovery coordinator.
Awesome. So before we get started in all the care systems and everything else that kind of goes with community resources and mental health, I really wanted to take the time and actually talk about mental health in the criminal justice system. It's such a big topic, and I just don't think it gets covered enough. So approximately 20% of individuals in jails and 15% of individuals in prisons are estimated to have a serious mental illness. Based on the prison population, that's approximately 383,000 individuals that are currently incarcerated with severe mental illness. So serious mental illness can branch off as schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, psychotic disorder, schizoaffective, anything of that nature. And when we go back to the 383,000 figure, it's pretty ridiculous because in a state mental hospital, there's only about 38,000 individuals altogether. So, what does that really tell you about the US and the system? That they're really using the prison system as a mental health alternative. And that is just not correct. It's not right. I think we've all heard stories, news, read articles on, just how the prison system and jails just do not have the adequate care for individuals with mental health issues. Um, so aside from that, individuals who are mentally ill also tend to stay in the criminal justice system a lot longer. Just a quick example. So individuals with no mental health history that are okay only tend to stay in Rikers for about 42 days compared to individuals with mental health issues stay up to about an average of 215 days. So that is a very long time for someone who has mental health issues to not be receiving appropriate care, appropriate treatment, and the support that is necessary. And because of this lack of care that isn't available to them in the prisons or in the jails, they're more susceptible to spending more time in solitary confinement. Now, again, what does that mean? That means one, it's not the appropriate care, and two, they're prone to developing anxiety, depression, psychotic breaks, anything of that nature, as well as suicidal ideation. Mentally ill individuals already have a higher suicide rate. Um, so now that I kind of gave you, a brief overview of how, big this problem is, I want to step in and talk more about social work, legal aid, and the criminal justice system and how we can combat this issue a little bit better. So the goal of social workers being involved is really to connect individuals to the appropriate support and community networks to avoid recidivism. Um, we really take the time to meet the client where we're at. We have to keep in mind that clients and individuals with mental illness still have the same rights as everyone else. So some people will say, oh, well, why don't you medicate them? Why don't you put them in the hospital? You can't do that. Just like I wouldn't be able to say something about you and put you in or do whatever. It's the same thing. All right. So this is especially important to meet them where they are. You know, take the assessment, take the time to get to know them, get that background. Are they already linked with community resources? Do they have treatment in the community? If they do, why aren't they compliant? Why are they linked? Have they been hospitalized before? Is this a relatively new issue that the client and the family is not even aware of? So it really, really takes some time to get to know the client and obtain all information so that we can kind of go the right way about it, and not force anything upon them. Um, we really do take the person and environment system really how do you say, to the core. We really want to make sure that we get to know the whole individual, not just what was done or not just the mental illness or the substance abuse issue. Do they have any trauma? How did they grow up? Where are they living? Just everything really, really, really has to do with the present situation they are in now. So, like I said, we really do try to advocate for alternatives to incarceration. A lot of these individuals will do very, very well once they are linked with the appropriate resources, whether it's mental health treatment, substance abuse treatment, case management, housing, anything of that nature. Once those resources are in place, chances are they will not return to the criminal justice system at all. Um, so with that, I'll have Christopher kind of talk about the systems of care and other resources available for our clients.
Thank you, Mildred. I'm glad that you started off this topic with talking about some of the history. I think it's important for us to all understand, why are we seeing so many people living with a mental illness in the community right now? Why are we talking about it so much? Why aren't we able to appropriately address a lot of these issues? And I don't know if anybody knows a lot of the history when it comes to this, and why this is happening. So um, let me just start by saying where I'm from again, Department of Community Mental Health. And I specifically want to say that as it relates to the history. So we talked about the school to prison pipeline before, and I think that was expertly done, by the way. We're talking about what we're seeing and how we are addressing people in the criminal justice system, especially youth and minorities and people who are diverse and are expressing their traumas and other social determinants and how it's being seen and perceived. But also, we've never done the best job, not only just in the United States, but also within our in the country and globally, and how we see and perceive mental illness. So let's talk about even the trans institutionalization, right, that even happened in the 60s. And again, I'm just spinning off on what Mildred is saying. You're wondering why we're seeing so many mental ill people in the community that were formerly in institutions, those state hospitals that I'm talking about. And now we're seeing more of them in the community, homeless, living in extreme poverty, experiencing criminal justice involvement. In the 60s, with the large deinstitutionalization movement, the Community Mental Health Centers Act was signed in 65 by Kennedy, to create community centers. Guess what? Departments of Community Mental Health. Welcome, that's who I am. The funding didn't go there. It actually went in a lot of different areas. And I know the funding has been a large issue when it comes to providing the services that we need for this population as well. So where did those people ended up that started getting discharged from the hospitals, that ended up on the streets? They didn't have the mental health outpatient services. They didn't have community centers. All of the things that were designed to keep people safely in the community were not put there. They ended up, because of behaviors, because of lack of resources, because of poverty, started to come in contact with law enforcement. And because of the way we perceived behaviors, those behaviors then got translated into criminal arrests, which then ended up people in criminal justice settings. They also tend to stay in jails much longer because of poor treatment. During those times, as Mildred said, in the jails where the medications weren't available, people were just languishing. They weren't able to be, their symptomatology continued, which then meant that going back and forth to jail, it was adjourned, it was adjourned, it was adjourned. They're not able to stand trial. Like, so many things were happening that just kept people in jail. And here we are, still talking the same talk and doing the same things, right? But we have done a lot of improvements. And I do want to just add that we are working a lot with law enforcement. Law enforcement are our partners now, in addition, of course, to Legal Aid Society and many others, to be trained better on how to engage people, how to divert arrests, more alternative to incarceration services. And what I want to talk about is what are the services that we have right now with DCMH, Department of Community Mental Health, and how someone can access services. So if somebody is living with and the language I'm using, and I'm using that specifically to reframe things, not suffering from, but living with. Somebody's living with a mental illness, right? Because we're all survivors and we're all resilient. We have our SPOA system, single point of access, which allows individuals living with a serious mental illness, all of the top ones that we hear in horror stories, but people are coping with, right? Mildred said, major depressive disorder, PTSD, schizophrenia, schizoaffective, bipolar disorder. If somebody is diagnosed with those disorders, they can fill out a SPOA application, which Tamika, what I will do is share a lot of those applications with you that you can share and information that you can share with everybody else. And
Thank you,
I'll
Chris.
just quickly explain how to access. So for somebody to get a range of services such as housing and case management services, they can fill out this SPOA application. It does not have to be done just by a psychiatrist or a clinician or somebody like me or social workers or legal aid society. It can be done by a family member. It could be done by the person themselves that also has their records to back up the fact that they are diagnosed with a serious mental illness. Once it comes to our office, they can be assigned to either case management or different levels of housing that may be available, from supported housing to a treatment apartment to a community residence, based on that person's level of need. I do want to stress that none of these housing options are immediate. Um, um, but they are out there for people who are in need that can't live on their own successfully in the community without some level of support. That's available to them. So that's one of the applications. I wish I was going to share my screen, but that's just going to be too much time to get that. And I want to get down to some of the other services. I know we've heard of ACT teams before. So let me explain what an ACT team is. And you know what? I'm lying to you. I will share my screen. Am I able to?
Chris?
You said
Yes. Am I able
should-
to share my screen really
Yes,
quickly?
you are. I made you
Okay.
a co-host.
Okay, great. So I'm just gonna do this, and I want to just pull up. I'm literally pulling up like 1 or 2 slides that breaks down what an ACT team and AOT is, which is mental hygiene law for people who are living with a mental illness, and because of their mental illness, they are posing a danger to self or others. So it's an extra layer of support that can be provided to that person, but also for the community as well and for family. So let me explain an ACT team, which is assertive community treatment. Hopefully, I know you probably just saw me disappear. Do not be scared. I am there. All right. So everybody just let me know if you can see. That's not where I wanted to go. And it is not, are you guys, oh, it's not sharing it. Okay. So it won't do it for me. So an ACT team pretty much is a multidisciplinary team that can be assigned to a person who, based again on their mental health, based on the symptomatology, based on the fact that they struggle to, and I don't like using the word comply, but struggle to adhere to a medical regimen of therapy, outpatient counseling, and medications that can make them function better in community. It's a team that's comprised of a psychiatrist, a psych nurse, social workers, family therapists, occupational therapists. It's really a team of people that go to the person and provide them the care and the service that they need wherever they are, as opposed to a person being able, having to go to a traditional brick and mortar setting that for some people, based on their mental illness, can be a hardship. And that provides an additional level of care and support to that individual. They do medication monitoring, they support them with employment and with housing. So it's not really just focusing on reduction of symptoms so that they can function in that way. It's really providing a holistic set of resources to help that person function within the community.